Busy boss syndrome. This is what we're going to be talking about on today's How to Lead, the podcast for CEOs, founders, and leaders who want the perfect balance of empathy and authority when it comes to leading their people. I'm Kate Waterfall-Hill, and I'm going to be sharing some ideas from over 30 years of working in business and leadership development. Before we get going, here's a quick reminder that if you want to be a better leader, why not sign up to my free weekly newsletter or grab a copy of my book, How to Lead, at waterfallhill.co.uk. So let's kick off with my alter ego, Linda the Bad Manager, and see how she handles being busy and much in demand.
Hi everyone, sorry I'm late for the meeting, but honestly, God, I've just had the most awful journey getting here. I'm just so busy, I'm just too stressed out. I've got the board meeting to prepare for later, and I've got loads and loads on. I mean, I would try and delegate to some of you, but I know you're really busy, and frankly, it's just too difficult to explain. It's quite complicated, the things I've got to do. So I'm just gonna crack on. I would ask you how you all are and what's going on with your world, but frankly, I haven't got time. I'm just too stressed out. So crack on. Enjoy your week. I'll see you on Friday for a little status update. Thanks.
So it's no surprise that Linda is definitely someone with the too busy boss syndrome, and this might be you too, or your own boss, or someone else you know. Either way, the too busy boss trademark is that they aren't afraid to tell everyone how stressed and busy and important they are. But the reality is, it's a peculiar paradox of leadership that the more senior you become, the less time you seem to have for the very people who help you deliver the results. We've all seen it. The boss whose office door is perpetually closed, who joins meetings 15 minutes late, slightly breathless, coffee in hand, apologising about their previous meeting that ran over, which of course means this one will too. But the real cost, when we're too busy for our teams, we're not just missing meetings, we're missing the point of leadership entirely. When we're too busy for our teams, we're actually creating more work for ourselves because the problems of an unattended team grow faster. We also tend to lose the good people. They don't quit companies, they quit invisible bosses. And we also miss the small issues, which means we don't address them before the small ones become major catastrophes. Some of the world's biggest companies have shifted to a new way of hybrid working, and they've got a new model. They don't implement this by the CEO just sitting alone in their office sending emails about flexibility. The success comes from extensive listening sessions with teams at all levels, proving that even the CEO of a huge company can make time for meaningful engagement. And I would suggest all of us can do that if we put our minds to it. So what actually works? Let's look at 3 practical approaches. First of all, it's about your time and realigning it. So block out dedicated team hours. Treat those team meetings with the same respect as you would a board meeting or a meeting with a client. If you wouldn't cancel on a client, don't cancel on your team. You might be surprised to learn that companies like Google have long practiced office hours for their leaders. They're set times when anyone can book a slot to discuss issues. The second idea is that you have a regular rhythm, a pattern of making sure that you meet your team and that the team sees you. So you could have weekly team meetings and they need to start on time and finish on time as well, and have a really good agenda that keeps the pace moving. There's another podcast episode about team meetings. You also need to make sure that your one-to-ones are booked in and actually happen, and maybe even have brief daily check-ins just to make sure that your team are okay and they also know that you're okay too. Resetting expectations is the third point. Clear deliverables, because just saying do this vague job when you can isn't a deadline, but preferably you should be agreeing the deadline together, as I've said before. Also having coaching conversations rather than interrogations or looking for somebody to blame when things go wrong. Actually having conversations that are open, that are based in curiosity and not on judgment. And making sure that your conversations with people are a two-way dialogue. They're not just you spouting forth. Preferably, you should be listening more than you're talking. And for those who have a too busy boss, if you're on the receiving end of this situation, I'd encourage you to be strategic with your use of that busy boss's time. Come prepared with solutions, not just problems. Make sure you document key discussions so you've got an evidence trail there, and use their preferred communication method. And that slightly goes against the grain of what I coach leaders to do, is that I ask them to seek out the preferred communication method of their team. But if you've got a too busy boss who's not very self-aware, then you might need to adjust to their preferred method and you might make better headway that way. Here's some ideas for making some changes. Consider starting with these simple steps. Block out 30 minutes every day for your team. Implement a no device policy in one-to-ones so you're not tempted to check and they aren't either. And ask for feedback on your availability. So, what do people think about how available you are, how present you are? Companies like Spotify have shown how this can work with their squad model, ensuring leaders remain accessible despite the rapid growth. It's about creating systems that make leadership presence a habit, not an afterthought. So in summary then, being too busy for your team isn't a badge of honour, it's actually a warning sign. Really encourage you to schedule regular protected team time. Make sure you set clear expectations and deliverables, but also create space for genuine coaching conversations where you're genuinely interested in what the other person has to say. You're listening to understand, not just listening to reply. And if you have a too busy boss, be strategic but persistent. Remember, effective leadership requires presence. So there's a real cost of being too busy. It's like trying to save time by not putting petrol in your car. Sure, you'll save 5 minutes at the station, but eventually you're going to end up stranded on the M25 wondering where it all went wrong. So before you set off for your next meeting that could have been an email, remember this: the best leaders aren't the ones who are always really busy. They're the ones who make time for what truly matters. And if you're too busy to lead, are you really leading at all? So to wrap up, just want to remind you that sometimes the most productive thing you can do is stop trying to be productive and start being present. That's all for this week. If you've enjoyed this episode of How to Lead, do follow for more leadership insights. And remember, if you want a guide by your side, get your hands on a copy of my book, which accompanies this podcast and is also called How to Lead. There's a link in the show notes. Please do like and leave a review and share with your fellow leaders to help spread the word. I truly appreciate your support. And if you have any suggestions for future episodes, please do let me know. Team management doesn't have to be frustrating. You too can enjoy being an authoritative yet empathetic leader. It just takes a decision to be more intentional about your interactions with others, some great tips on how to influence positive change, and of course a good guide. Listen more, advise less, and lead well. Have a good week.